Good evening. Once again we return to the story of Caius, Spellsword, Dunmer, finest courier in Tamriel, eternal champion, agent of the Emperor, and currently looking for the tomb of Lysandus. Now I believe we just completed this task. Alright, now we have, this means that we've got some free time. So let's start by... I think I'm going to start by doing a little bit of training now. Before I began today's broadcast, I watched a lot of the previous episodes. And if you would like to know the location of Lysandus' tomb, it is in chapter 17 at the 1 hour 6 minute mark. Which, if you watch all of the videos in order, is over a day of material. So I will save you the time and we will say where it is later on in the broadcast. But before we go any further, let's take a minute and find a bit of training, and we'll get ourselves set up for a longer journey. And perhaps on the way we can read some of the books that I've been neglecting.
Incense and soft music soothe your nerves as you cross the threshold. Each item in this shop is carefully mounted and displayed. Not the slightest defect can be detected on any item within. Caius, it honors me to bestow upon you the rank of Master Wizard. By deed and word, you have proven yourself to be an exceptional guild member worthy of the penultimate position that the Mages Guild recognizes. As a full Master Wizard, you may call upon the services of the Travelers League, who guard the Guild's most treasured and secret room, the Teleportation Chamber. From there, you may travel to any other settlement in the Bay in but a twinkling. As your time is most valuable, the Chamber should aid you. Once again, permit me to congratulate you on this great honor, Master Wizard. You and the trainer practice for 3 hours. The trainer tells you to reflect on what you've learned and to see if it can be put to good use.
Alright, that sounds like a fine little bit of advancement. Now, one thing I would like to check, first of all, it is the 27th of First Seed. I wrote some notes here, but this wouldn't be a bad time to take a look at, the source material. I'm looking for the Invocation of Azura. Now, do I really want to go through all of this? I mean, I can sell it. Wait, so I don't have this book? That doesn't make any sense. notes say the next possible summoning would come on Rain's Hand, the 9th of Rain's Hand, so looking at the calendar, that's actually not too far away. Yeah, that's 12 days. So we'll get a little bit of work done in town before we go any further. We will start by selling all the materials. And I am interested in pursuing the quest with Lysandus' ashes. But now that we know we can do summoning, I would like a chance to actually, while I'm at it, I would like a chance to summon what I can.
Listen, I will offer you the absolute maximum I can without losing my shirt. Here's 440 gold. Take it and tell all your friends that you cheated me. The shop is better appointed than many. Its wares lie neatly on the shelves. Although not fit for a king, all are skillfully crafted.
Also, I shouldn't have said Lysandus' ashes. I meant the dust of restful death.
Not bad, not bad. I'd give most people less, but for you, 1,333 gold. That is my absolute best offer.
Alright, now I believe there is a bank nearby. Maybe here. Alright, I must be going crazy. I could have sworn there was a bank, though. There is one thing I want to check. I would normally do it inside the game, but I'm going to use the wiki here, and that's just to see if there's a cost for teleportation. Alright, apparently it is free. most inspiring selection. Alright, so the next question is, now, again, if you would like to confirm this, on chapter 17 at the 1 hour 6 minute mark, we learn that Lysandus' tomb is in Menevia. Yep, there it is. There's Lysandus' tomb. Alright, so that's gonna take 25 days. That's too long for us. Oh, the bank's almost certainly going to be closed at this time. Damn you. Alright. So here's what I'm gonna do to amuse myself in the meantime. I can obviously rest and spend the day sort of studying. But what we're gonna do is take a look and see if there's any other, if there's any quests that we can go on the outside. This is not going to be an official job. What this is going to be is just going out of the town, running around for a while, and seeing what we can get up to in the evening. Although I suppose in the grand scheme of things I can just try and find work to take up my time for the next 9 days or so. Alright. So now we're just gonna go off into the west and see what happens. Now what I think I will do in the meantime, I'm going to set up in the other window one of the books that we were intending to read. And we will continue to hear the story of King Edward as we travel to the west. This would be King Edward Chapter 9.
King Edward Part 9. Luck. Edward knelt behind Morlin, leaning over his shoulder so that he could see the cards the elf held. He was sitting away from the fire. It was dark for human eyes, but Morlin was the only one of the group who would allow Edward to see his hand. The other players, Beach, Myth, and Mats, said Edward brought them bad luck. Morlin said that it was not really a question of luck, but their hands were reflected in Edward's face for those who had the eyes to see such images. It was too dark for Beach and Mats to see Edward now, and Morlin blocked him from Myth's view. And yet the pile of coins in front of Morlin had grown smaller since Edward had taken a place behind him. But this time he had been dealt a good hand. Edward could see it. It was Mats's turn. He was cogitating. "You're shivering, son," Morlin said. "Have you no warmer clothing? We must find something for you. Here, come share my cloak then. You can hold the cards if you like." The wind was chill. There was a bite to it now, and now that they were farther north, and the year had grown older. Edward accepted the shelter of Morlin's arm and the warm... Morlin's arm and the warm fur cloak and sat close against his side. "I think I'll just play the cards I hold," Mads said at last, and pushed a pile of coins into the pot, and then with sudden resolve added a few more. "There." "Throw the hand down, Edward. We're through." "But there aren't many better hands than what we've got," Edward protested. "Edward!" Morlin growled. "Well, how am I supposed to learn?" Mats didn't have to show his cards unless they matched his bet. "By watching, silently." "Oh, very well. No one ever told me that fatherhood came cheaply." He shoved most of his coins into the pot to match Matt's bet, and Edward laid the hand down. "Ah," Matt said. "You needn't do that, my friend. I'll show the boy my cards for free." "You filthy Nord," Morlin said in disgust. "Put down your cards and take my gold. If you can beat my hand, let's see if I'm the one who needs educating on how to play the game." "You don't," Matt grinned. "Except that you could have accepted my generous offer instead of throwing an insult at me." Mats laid down the perfect hand, called the Ladies. "A taunt like that rates an insult, Mats. That hand is almost worth the viewing price. 5 beautiful ladies. You don't see them together every day. They're not that fond of one another's company." "How'd you know?" Edward demanded. "Ah, that'd be telling," Morlin grinned. "Some things you're supposed to learn for yourself. That's part of the game. But remember that a good hand's worthless if someone else holds it better."
Just moving to the next page.
"I'm sorry," Edward looked ruefully at the few remaining coins. "No matter, it's foolish to play with Mats on those nights when the god of luck himself stands at his shoulder, and all I have at mine is a runaway Breton prince who should be in his bed. He'd have that money off me in the end. This way we'll get a bit of sleep." "Spoil sport," Mats grumped. "It's not every night that Sai visits me, and I do enjoy his presence." "He can leave as quickly as he comes. Sai's not someone you want to get over fond of, Mats." "Who should know better than I? Nay, do not apologize. I appreciate your concern for me, my friend. It's not altogether unwarranted, but I'm mindful of the temptation. I know how dependable Sai's favor is, and how capricious. I play only among my friends whom I do trust. Good night, then." Morlin and Myth went off to join those who were already asleep, leaving Mats and Beach and Edward by the fire. The Dark Elves' natural sleep pattern was a period of 5 or 6 hours during the day, and a short nap of 2 or 3 hours after midnight. Now they were traveling. They were sleeping only at night, which was a difficult adjustment for Myth and Morlin, who had to use spells to cope with it. Edward slept a bit as soon as they had stopped for the night, while the others prepared supper. In consequence, he was now wide awake. Beach was yawning. Matt seemed to require less sleep than the rest. "Tell me about Sai, Mats. I've never heard of him before. I didn't know that there was any god of luck. I thought that just happened." "Being as you're a Breton, I can understand that. Bretons like things explained, clear and reasonable, in sequence, so one thing follows from another, and you know where you are. Most gods are like that. They lay down rules, and if you obey them and pay homage to the god, why then he or she grants you favor. And the better you keep the rules, the more you worship the god, the higher you rise in his favor. Those rules aren't always easy to keep, and one god's rules may require you to violate another's, but you know where you are. Well, Sai's not like that. He's not a Daedra, but he's got a Daedric side to him for sure. One thing, if you worship him too much, he'll abandon you altogether. We call it Sai's affection. It's an overwhelming desire for the god's constant presence. My father suffered from it, poor man. The disease is more than just a desire for the god's presence. The sufferers require continual proof of the god's favor, so they gamble incessantly. Not to win, for all they do with the winnings is keep on gambling until they lose. Then they do what they must to raise the stakes so they can gamble again. Oh, it's a terrible thing. Terrible. My father sold me as a slave because of it. Later, he sold my oldest sister. Then, when he was in debt yet again, he killed himself in one of those rare lucid moments when he could see what was happening to him. What he was doing to his family, himself. course, I was just a kid when I was sold. I didn't understand. I thought it was because of some fault of mine that I'd been sent away, laziness or stupidity or disobedience, and that if only I'd been a better son, that it wouldn't have happened. That's Ariel's way. It's intended that children should respect their parents and learn from them, but some parents aren't deserving of respect. Well, that was the sickness in him, so my mother says. And I don't know that he should be blamed for it, any more than if he had the red plague or leprosy. I believe her, yet sometimes I still feel that it was my fault. Well, that was bad luck, you might say, but Sai sent me to Morrowind, and that was a lucky day indeed. What other god would put it into his head to stop one human from beating on another? Any other elf in Tamriel would have turned away in disgust, or stopped to watch and laugh at the stupid humans. 2 dark elf kids against 4 grown Nords. And for all they knew, I deserved what I was getting. I could have been a thief or a murderer. I suppose I was a thief. I'd stolen myself, so to speak. Morland can't say himself why he did it. He says that he was spoiling for a fight that day, and seeing slave catchers on Morrowind soil did nothing to ease his temper. That's why I say it was Sai, but it was Morland that listened to the god.
Just turning the page. It's 7 in the evening.
There's no doubt it's a grand thing to feel Sai's hand on your shoulder. It's like riding the finest horse, like love itself. You're one with the world, and everything goes your way, everything on your side instead of being the constant struggle that life really is. You don't have to be smart or handsome or kind or witty. Things just go your way. If you do something dumb, it doesn't matter. It'll turn out to be the right thing to have done. Lucky. Some folks do seem to be born lucky, others unlucky. I don't know why. Most everyone feels Sai's presence sometimes, I guess. You have, haven't you? Edward shook his head. He has no idea what Mats is talking about. Well, it's a kind of greed, I guess, this Sai's affliction. You see, there's only so much luck to spread around, and if a few folks have got it, there'd be none left for the rest. Like tonight, when I won that last pot, but the others had to lose it. Everyone can't win with Sai. That's not true with other gods, not necessarily. You still don't understand, do you? Would you like to hear a story about Sai? Edward nodded. Mats was a good-natured fellow, but usually quite silent. Edward had thought him rather stupid. Mats' luck at cards seemed to have loosened his tongue, and now Edward saw that he thought a lot more than he talked.
Turning the page.
Long, long ago, when people were fewer and wolves were more numerous now, a young widow named Jesea lived smack in the middle of what is now the province of Skyrim. She was an ordinary sort of woman, neither plain nor pretty. She had smooth brown hair, warm brown eyes, a short nose, a full round face, and a body to match. She'd been born the only child of peasant farmers. Her parents had been carried off by typhoid when she was 17. Shortly afterwards, she had married Tom, a strong young woodcutter with a cheerful disposition and a roving eye. He'd gotten her pregnant quickly, and then turned his attentions elsewhere. Shortly before the babe was due, he'd been killed by a local goldsmith who'd come home unexpectedly to find the handsome woodcutter in bed with his wife, and stuck the knife in his back. Tom's death had occurred on Heart's Day. The babe, a boy, was born 4 months later during mid-year. 2 neighbor women came to help her birth him, and one stayed a few days. After that, she was left to cope with caring for the child and the small holding as best as she could. One evening, in the next morning star, Jesea went out to a small barn to do the evening chores, leaving the babe asleep in his crib. The wind was howling. She had to clutch her cloak tightly around her. She milked and fed the cow, fed the pigs and the chickens. When she left the barn, she walked out into a fierce blizzard. The wind had risen so that the barn door was wrenched from her hand and smacked back against the side of the barn. She couldn't even see the house, which was near the road and some little distance from the barn, but she set off towards it with confidence. She'd lived there all of her life and knew every inch of the ground, although she'd never seen a storm quite as fierce and sudden. Already there were 2 inches of snow beneath her feet. She struggled against the wind for some time, until at last she realized that she must somehow have gone past the house. She turned back and tried to follow her footprints, reasoning that she'd at least warm herself in the barn before setting out again. But the snow was falling so thickly that her footprints vanished before her eyes. She was quite lost and cold. Jesea struggled on, hoping to come across something recognizable, a boulder or a tree in the road, if not the house or the barn. Her hands and feet were wet and numb. She hadn't dressed heavily and was now chilled to the bone, ice forming on her eyebrows and lashes. "Timmy! Timmy!" She cried her child's name, hoping against hope that the babe would awake and cry, and that she might follow the sound to him. She stood and listened, gasping the cold air into her lungs, but there was only the howling of the wind. The wind or something more? A gray shape took form in front of her, staring at her with slitted yellow eyes, a great gray wolf. Her heart seemed to stop. Her eyes filled with tears at the thought of her child lying helpless in the house alone and his mother dead outside. How unlucky to die so close to shelter. Unlucky. But she had always been unlucky, the unluckiest woman that she knew. It might be days before any thought to visit her. She sank down to her knees, exhausted. The wolf sat before her, threw back its head, and voiced its dreadful howl. Her frozen hands scrabbled in the snow, looking for a stone or a stick, anything with which to defend herself against the pack. Another dark shadow appeared from the whirling white snow. She scrambled backwards in a panic. This one was also gray, but tall and two-legged, gray-cloaked and hooded. Its gloved hand reached for the wolf's head and patted it. Her scream died in her throat. "No need to fear, lass. We'll not bring you any harm. Nay, quite otherwise. Be you the mother of yon child?" She nodded dumbly. His voice was deep and kind, clear in the whistling of the high wind, but her eyes went to his dread companion. "No need to fear," he repeated. "My friend Grelin here will lead us back to safety, unless you indeed do wish to spend the night here." His hands reached for hers and pulled her up, and she leaned on his arm and hobbled alongside him. When they at last reached the door, he said, "I stopped here hoping for shelter from the storm. I hope you don't mind." How could she refuse?
Just need to turn the page.
Men too could be wolves, but if he was here, it wasn't likely he'd take no for an answer anyway. "Please, come in. I left the kettle on the boil, but I expect it's empty by now," she said inanely. I did go in, but there was no response to my knock, and I found the babe asleep and alone, with the kettle boiling away. I took the kettle from the fire, but let the babe be. I knew his mother would not be far, and I sent Grelin to find you. Lucky for you, but then I've always brought luck to those around me. He threw back his hood, and she saw that he was tall and pale, with silver hair and eyes, but a young face. His countenance was grim. The silver eyes were kind and his mouth gentle. "My horse, too, will want shelter this night. Have you a shed to offer him?" While he stabled his horse, she changed out of her wet clothing and fixed a bit of supper for them both, soup and bread and cheese and elm root tea. As she dished it up, she apologized meekly for her meager fare. "Why, 'tis a feast compared to my efforts," he smiled, and fell to hungrily. Grelin lay by the fire, his eyes fixed on his master, who occasionally flung him a morsel. "He ate well yesterday. Lucky for your chickens, else I'd have to buy one from you." "Nay, nay," she protested. "I'm deep in your debt, and I'm glad to share anything I have with you." The babe stirred and cried then, and she picked him up, changed his wet diaper, and put him to her breast. "Where's your husband, lady?" She hesitated a moment. The thought flashed that she could not tell the stranger how alone and unprotected she was, and then she told him the truth. "A sad tale, truly," he said. "But he's left you a handsome child, and you seem quite comfortable here." His eyes went round the humble one-room cottage, crib and feather bed at one end, covered with a quilt and her mother's making, and stone hearth at the other, table and chairs made by her father in the middle. A ladder led to the loft where she'd slept as a child. Suddenly the simple rooms seemed like a palace to her. They were warm and dry and well fed, and what indeed could be better? "Why, you're right, stranger. I am lucky after all. Now will you tell me something of yourself?" "I'm less fortunate than you in some ways. I'm a wanderer, born to wanderers, a tinker by trade, though I can turn my hand to most things. I've never been married and have no children, nor have I ever had a home other than the wagon my horse pulls. I've never stayed long in one place. My parents named Isai, but most folks call me Lucky." "Lucky is what I will call you then, for indeed you have been lucky to me." He stood and stretched and began clearing the remnants of their meal from the table. He poured water from the copper kettle into the basin and washed and dried the dishes, something she had never seen a man do before. After the babe was fed, they played with him on the hearthrug while he told her some of the odd and wonderful places and people that he had met on his journeys. And once again her life seemed very narrow and dull. After an hour or two the babe grew tired and cranky. She took him on her lap and sang to him until he fell asleep. She laid him in his crib and wrapped him warmly in a rabbit fur bunting. When she went back to the fire, Lucky reached for her hand and held it for a moment without a word. Then they were in one another's arms and kissing hungrily. They shed their clothing and lay together shamelessly, enjoying each other's bodies in the flickering rosy firelight. He loved the roundness of her breasts and thighs, belly and buttocks. and she said that he was juicy, and said she was as juicy as an apple. His bleached, lean, muscular body and silken hair fascinated her as much. She had loved Tom and known pleasant moments with him, but nothing like she had felt with this stranger. She woke in bed in the morning, the babies crying as usual. Lucky wasn't there, and she thought he must have been a vivid dream. Then the door opened and shut, and he was striding toward her, fully dressed, and motioning to her where she was. He kissed her lips, and then brought the babe to her, and stood watching as he suckled. What a pity that we remember not the pleasure that we once knew. Yet we have the pleasures that we still remember, she said, and felt her cheeks redden at her boldness. What a wanton he must think of her. There's a very odd quotation here. What a wanton he must think her, he said, and laid his cold hand against her hot cheek.
Turning the page.
The storm had stopped during the night, but the snow was deep on the road. It was clear that it would be days before the horse could pull Lucky's small wagon along the road. That wagon was brightly painted with leaves and vines and flowers in red and blue and green and yellow. The wheels were red with yellow spokes. It had a canvas top, also painted, blue with white fleecy clouds. Josiah loved the wagon, but it sorted oddly with Lucky's quiet grayness. Lucky did small jobs for her, mending tools, hinges, and utensils. He cut more wood for her, saying that if she did not need it this year, there would be another. He stayed a week, and the thaw came, and then a freeze, and the road was rutted but fit for travel. They looked at one another in the morning light, and he said that it couldn't hurt to stay another day, or maybe two, if she was not yet tired of him. She wasn't. After another week, Lucky asked her if she would come with him. Her heart leapt at the question, but she looked around the little house where she'd spent all of her life, and thought of the land and village and her babe, and said, I can't go. I have no desire to travel, and I don't want to bring my babe up as a homeless waif. Pain flashed across Lucky's pale face, but he only nodded, harnessed up his horse, and kissed her goodbye. Tears clouded her eyes and blurred the gay wagon colors. Sun's dawn passed very slowly, with rain and sleet and snow, but nothing like the storm that had brought Lucky to her. Occasionally there was a knock at her door, which started her heart pounding, but always it was just a villager come to buy dried herbs, the dried herbs that she sold. Then, on the first night of first seed, she heard the creak of a wagon and knew. She flew to the door, face alight, and flung herself into his arms. I can't stay, he said. I'm just passing through. And that was all the talking they did for quite a while. Spring came and crocuses poked their noses up through the snow. Lucky spaded her garden. Curious neighbors came to call, but found no more about him than she knew. She sold them eggs, her chickens were laying very well, and dried herbs and an elixir that she made from her grandmother's recipe, which was a sovereign for a headache and rheumatism. They hired Lucky for odd jobs, despite their suspicion of him. Lucky continued to come and go, never saying where or when he'd be back, but he seldom stayed away more than a few days. He spoke no words of love, but loved her fiercely all the same. Josiah's round belly grew rounder, and she weaned Timmy to cow's milk. Lucky's trips became shorter and less frequent. All around the land prospered. Even the oldest could not recall a better harvest. In Hearthfire, Josiah birthed a beautiful baby girl with silver hair, but eyes of cornflower blue. Lucky held his child, and joy radiated from him, so that he seemed to burn with a white fire.
And that is the end of part 9. Now I'll probably not do another horse ride while reading, because the hoofs are a bit distracting, but I do want to see how far we traveled. Yeah, we chose the one place where we can't find anything. Alright. like they have some waiting to do for the bank, but we'll at least do it in town. Oh, actually, there's one thing that I can do. I can do some training while I wait for the bank to open. There's not a lot that's happened in the save, but I'll at least get the progress with my skills in. So I'm gonna run on this assumption that I'm going to be able to do a summoning in the region with Lysandus' tomb. Okay, well, while we're here, we'll at least go to the book dealer. So I'm taking a little bit of extra from my inventory just in case, and I will withdraw 100,000 in a letter of credit. And I am aiming to make sure that I'm around a Mage's Guild by the 9th of Rain's Hand. And again, it's entirely possible I could have just done some quests around here, but that just seems like an excuse to stay in Daggerfall for longer than I really want. I will also not just go out into the wilderness again. Part of that was a test to see whether or not I would actually run into anything outside. And it's hard to say that actually doing the journey is worth it compared to fast travel. Alright, because we haven't used this before. Oh wow, I can go straight to Lysandus' tomb. Alright, that is genuinely impressive. Now, of course, there's a challenge. I may not actually be able to, make it, back to a Mage's Guild on time, but we'll deal with that later. Are you Lysandus? So for those of you not clear what's going on, we've gained the dust of restful death. Medora has given me a powder that will soothe the spirit of Lysandus. However, it will not lay his shade to rest, but only calm it. Now I need to find his tomb and use it. And we had found the tomb earlier by doing a job for the Underking. Surprise. Rats. Where are they? Okay, I guess it's not Lysandus. I'll take this, but it's the first thing I'm dropping if I can't carry what I want. And that's why I saved. That was only slightly terrifying. Well, that's that. Good run, guys. I just want to see if there's any pathways that I ignored. So there's one if I go pretty deep. I think I'm just gonna try this again because I remember there was more things that we left undone earlier. Like there, for instance. Okay. We'll just follow the same path and wait until we get into an encounter that we haven't, or a pathway that we haven't run yet. So going straight forward, for instance, because we haven't explored this part of the map yet. I have no idea what I just wrote, but I know it's useless. Alright, similar story, just going straight forward to see anything that I haven't explored yet. It's doing a good job of draining my mana, that's for sure. I'm assuming there's something terrifying on the other side of that door. Well, it sounded like there was. Now this interests me because it seems to say... No, never mind. Good at backstabbing ghosts, apparently.
freshly drawn map indicates the long-lost location of the Christona Coven, which you copy down.
It's always an option to explore those. Usually I have more pressing matters, but I won't eliminate that as a possibility. Especially because if Lysandus's bones don't indicate where we should be going immediately after, I am gonna have some spare time. I don't think we need an iron flail. That was very satisfying. Alright, I'm not gonna turn down more loot, but at some point we do actually need to find Lysandus. Okay, now this has to be because it's... Yeah, that's just a quirk of the map. I was very confused for a moment. Alright, now I'm just trying to remember which leads me to the start of the level and which brings me to something new. This is what people are talking about when they say old games are better than new ones. This is so stupid. I would actually love to include this, maybe with some modern textures, as Somebody should do an application for a level designer to Bethesda. See what kind of a critique they would get on their portfolio if they included this. I can't even find the parts that I haven't explored yet. Let's just run forward and see where it takes us. Not very far. I'm pretty sure this is going back to the entrance. Yep. Alright. So as always, our outside option is to use the cheat and run ahead. And now I forget where I just came from. I'm pretty sure I want to go this way. But I'm not actually at a point yet where I'm out of options. Wait, we just passed this. Alright, here we go. But yeah, I don't want, I don't want laziness to be an excuse to not explore the game. We still have a few places we haven't checked out yet, which I can access fairly straightforwardly, so... Oh, damn it. No, okay, that's apparently the entrance again. So, we know there's more to this place than we've seen. But apparently I haven't found any of the secret passages. That, or we've passed Lysandus and I just haven't realized it. So we'll go back to the main room and see what we can find. And maybe I don't actually need to explore the rest of the tomb. It may be that his body is at that top level. Okay, so we're gonna, well, first off, I'm gonna unload stuff onto my wagon. thing I'm just gonna try here is, alright. Okay, now I am naturally interested, but what in the world has gone on over here? This is apparently some secret room we've not discovered yet. I really would like to figure out how this connects to the rest of the place. Okay, actually, I think I seem to remember this. So yes, my bad, I just didn't read the right area. Apparently that was accessible to us. I may need to consider resting at some point, but I'm gonna try and get as much mileage out of this as I can. Yeah, this pattern always drives me bananas. This is a tomb where somebody's supposed to live in this place. Don't get me wrong, if I have a tomb like this, I want a library as well, but... No plague. It's Lysandus' ribcage. Let's just call it a day. Oh no. Should probably keep one of those. Oh, actually, I think that makes my strength. Yes, it does. Yeah, my soul. Or actually, hang on. I don't remember if that means that my orc strength is no longer active. Seeing as I'm carrying that soul of the werewolf, I should probably try and enchant my katana. Alright, clearly I need to heal up. I'm not going to clear out the mana this time because I do want to minimize the amount of time I'm spending on this. Depending on how far I have to trace back to find something new to look at, I am potentially going to use the teleport again. No, just blank parchment. Surprise ghost. Just close that door so I can remember that. Alright, so there was on the odd chance that that hallway went longer. Usually closing the door is just the indicator to me that I haven't explored it yet. When I started, I was going to compliment this on being very straightforward. Every time I say that, it is always a case of speaking too soon. Not doing too bad for money. We've got about 3,000 for our trouble, so a little less than double our pocket change. I of course could afford a house as well if I didn't spend all this time summoning Daedra. That's the real reason the Mages Guild likes me. Ow. I'm always a little nervous about zombies because they can infect you. It's a guy who was mildly important to Lysandus. Yeah, apparently this is just where they put the servants, where they're like, we'll include them, but we'll just put them in a corner somewhere. Oh, God. In the worst case scenario, I can always levitate, but that costs mana and I'd rather not spend it. I know there's paths ones that I haven't gone down before. Okay, we got a few. At this point, I am considering teleporting if it's a really long and winding path to try and find a spot I haven't gone through. And that's just because of the possibility that I wind up finding that it's a dead end. Yeah, like that. So. So even though I've been here before, this is not a bad example of something I'd be willing to explore. Because one of the reasons for doing those teleports is just, it is mind-numbing to try and find a room like this again. It's not every day I get to backstab a zombie. As always, we'll go through this as long as we find it useful. Hurrah! It's still so odd to me that they make treasure chests which actually can't be interacted with. Alright, so I've been looking at the... They've made 2 layers of these boxes, which makes it even harder to read where you've been. So I thought I was up here. Turns out there's another level, which I have explored before, but it doesn't do a very good job of communicating that to me. Alright, as much as I am pained to do this, I'm just gonna... I sadly just don't have the patience for those kinds of rooms. okay to drop the Daedric weapon, because those do tend to return quite a bit. Cure disease is very important. I'm gonna leave it. There is somewhere I haven't explored by the end of this, right? Yeah. I have a feeling this is going to be one that I just wind up. I'm probably going to wind up teleporting to the end at some point just because I get fed up with it, but I'm going to run by as long as I can. So apparently I've been here before. Alright, that was apparently somewhere I'd teleported before. Is there anything new? I was gonna say if Lysandus' body was here, I was gonna go nuts. So again, the fact that I can teleport there means that that's a potential location for a treasure to be dropped. And, if I read that correctly, it basically means there was the possibility that I would have, the objective would have been behind an unlockable door for me. Nothing good is in these rooms, ever. No, you can do it. You can do it. Clearly this is Lysandus' body, right? Alright, so it looks like we've explored this area. We're gonna go back to our old tricks. Yeah, man, this one, these are always so hard to deal with. Just because you have no idea what layer of the map you're on. I think if it wasn't for this room, or this set of rooms, I wouldn't be doing the teleport thing. I just really want to double check because the thing is indicated this is a potential place for the body, or wherever, whatever the quest object. And we're back to where we started. So if this is Lysandus' body, I am going to just flip out. No, okay, good. But apparently we've cycled through all the potential, I'm missing something here. Okay, I gotta go to the wiki and figure this out. Nope, apparently it looks like a real tomb, so my bad. So apparently, I can't actually access. Apparently, there's no direct teleport to it. Interesting. Alright, oh, I didn't realize there were walkthroughs here. Alright, I really hate to do this, but I am going to drop off the stuff. And I'm at least going to follow the written instructions up to the point that I find Lysandus's tomb. And if memory serves, you need to reset the anchor each time. Alright, so apparently you're supposed to click the floating skull to get a teleport. No, I didn't know it teleported, but I thought I did interact with the skull. Oh boy. Yep, there it is. Alright. We've definitely been in this room before. Oh Jesus, these walkthroughs are impossible to read. This makes me glad I haven't looked at them before, because I think I would get even more lost. Just realigning the page. Okay, it says turn north. Follow the stairs down, then up. I'm pretty sure I've gone the wrong way here. Not this again. Oh yeah, no, I'm well and truly lost now. Okay, four-way intersection. Oh boy. At this point, I'm going to go from the start and I'm going to read everything out. This is a new low in terms of the stream. I'm sorry, guys. So, the burial chamber is located deep inside the tomb. Ahead of you lies probably the longest route of all the main quest dungeons. From the entrance, walk west through the hall, past some interesting statues of the various foes you can come against in the game. Go through the door on the left, follow the hallway until you come to an intersection. Turn north and follow the hallway until you reach a door. Go through it. Intersection, north. Go through the door. Follow the hallway until you reach the floating skull. Interact with the skull. Teleport it to a room with torture instruments. There's some commentary on like secret doors and whatnot, but it apparently isn't. Leave the room through the northwest door. Follow the hallway down and go through a room at the end. Leave the corridor through the door and follow the hallway until you come to an intersection. And then turn east. Intersection east. Jump or levitate across the pit. Follow until it turns north. Could you imagine not saving? This seems like something significantly more powerful. So. Lord. Maybe I should save after doing all those actions. The challenge, of course, is that all my mana is taken up with the... And the thing that weirds me out is the... The guy doesn't actually mention a vampire. Wait, it's gone. No, no, no. I'm determined to take this thing out. I don't think invisibility works on these things, but can't hurt. In fact, I'm gonna do what any self-respecting adventurer does and just make a cocktail of a little bit of everything. I'm an invisible shadow chameleon. Let's dance. I survived. No! I need to absorb enough to be able to heal, but it definitely just pounds you with everything it can. I get to relive that fond memory. Damn it. Close. If I didn't have my hand on the mouse, it would be enough, but I need to control my weapon somehow. Knowing, of course, that this thing goes away if I, rest. I am determined to beat it on these terms. I'm sure the lack of fortitude doesn't help. So maybe the answer is I'm just gonna stand my ground and hit the backspace as soon as I can. Okay, look like he has decided he is going to turn on me automatically now. This will make life harder. got rid of my werewolf though, so I gotta take this guy out. I think what I will do is I'll pop my resistances though. Sadly, there's no resist shock, which is what I think I actually need. Okay, there's a hope. Oh no! I needed to free myself up before I... Alright, actually with that in mind. Let's see if I can preload the bomb. Ha! I'm not saving on this. That's gonna be a beauty when I take that to the Mages Guild. Alright. Follow the hallway until it turns south. No, until it turns north. Follow the hallway further north. Go through the door and turn west at the intersection. Follow the hallway north until you reach a second intersection, which is here. Turn east, go down the stairs until you come to a four-way intersection. Turn north, follow the stairs, down, then up till you reach. Alright, this was right. Go east and through the door. Now that doesn't make sense. So east would be this way. When you reach a third intersection, oh. Go up the stairs to the south. Once you're at the top, head east and go through the door. Yeah, this is wrong. But I think I have enough to make sense of this. Alright, I'm back on track. The doorway is hidden, but you will appear on the overhead map. Yep, that's the one. Head farther north, past an intersection. Go around the corner, head east. At another intersection, and go through the door. Alright. Turn north. And then east at a four-way. Go through a room. Okay, then go north and follow a hallway. Until it takes a turn to the east. Till now you've encountered only vampires, wraiths, and ghosts, but at this point you will encounter the more dangerous undead, namely vampire ancients and liches. Yeah, already there. Vampire ancient is just at the four-way intersection. After you take care of him, walk further east past the two rooms. Wait. We've already gone past these two rooms and there definitely wasn't liches in them. Go up the stairs and then head south. Then go through a doorway leading east. These are pretty crappy directions. Walk up the ramp and head east. Okay, walk past an intersection, which I'm assuming this is. Follow the hallway. Turn south. You will encounter a vampire ancient on the way. Yay. North of the intersection. And apparently there's an elevator. That doesn't make any sense. I'm at a hallway here. Oh, hang on. It looks like there is. Is that what I missed? Oh, alright. Fair enough. I bet I can ignore this for the rest of the while. And find my way. I just needed to know there was an elevator there. Because all of those rooms we'd been in before. human vampire has now been replaced with a rat. This sure looks like the screenshot I saw. Alright, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not quite sure what to do. If you had asked me, I would have said this was the tomb. I'm determined not to look at the guide. So I wonder if there's a lever or something that I need to pull to... Oh, hang on. There was a door-shaped gap. A magic... Ah! So this one was different. Oh. Same trick. Apparently I'm really bad at finding elevators. Boy, that was worth it. The atmosphere on this is kind of neat. It's giving me so many tedious little jobs to do, which aren't quite as exciting. Okay, presumably this is the point where I use the... Wait, what? Alright, so apparently there's supposed to be a cutscene.
So it says here, bugs. If you play in DOSBox at 100% CPU speed, the game can glitch and not show you the animation with Lysandus revealing the mystery of his murder. In order to watch the animation, save your game just right before sprinkling the dust, lower your CPU cycles down to 5 to 10, and then sprinkle the dust if this does not help. Reload your save game and try for different CPU values.
We're going to try the default again.
You soothe my rage. I do not seek to be placated. I seek vengeance upon he who slew me. If you would truly lay my spirit to rest, be the instrument of my vengeance against Lord Woodborn of Wayrest.
Lysandus's ghost appeared to me and told me that only the death or humiliation of his murderer, Lord Woodborn, would lay his soul to rest. Lord Woodborn is a noble of Wayrest and betrothed to Princess Elisana. He has a castle in the wilderness of Wayrest.
Alright, so now the real question is, am I able to get out of here and deal with the Mages Guild in time? So let's find the closest town.
Good day to you, Caius.
Could you please tell me where to find the Mages Guild?
You asked the right person. Just look for look for it. The Mages Guild is not too far to the south if you don't mind walking.
Well, Pawnbroker seems like a good place to go. I could have trained in that time.
Listen, I can offer you the absolute maximum I can without losing my shirt. Here is 22,266 gold. Take it and tell all your friends that you cheated me.
So the funny thing is, we wasted a bunch of money on a letter of credit, which we probably won't use now.
Shop is laid out in a practical and straightforward manner. All of the items seem to be of adequate construction.
You know what? I'm just gonna go to Daggerfall. Obviously, at some point I need to go to Wayrest, but I'm more familiar with the layout in Daggerfall. So before I get too carried away, I can sell some of the other goods. Just occurred to me I had something else I wanted to do before I tried to summon the Daedra. First things first. Might as well equip it. Now, this is going to be the trickier one. Too much. That's promising.
The item has been enchanted.
None. Now we were waiting for the Ninth of Rain's hand. So here I am actually gonna try and find a quest. Restoration's getting close. I need 87. So 8 more points.
All are free to petition His Highness at this time. Do not stray from the audience chamber, lest ye have royal blessing to do so. Always speak politely to the king and queen, and above all, cast no spells while within these walls. Do ye agree with these terms? Recognize those sturdy young legs. How are you, my old courier?
Looking for more work. This is the one time nobody has anything for me to do. can just practice my magic for 9 days, but that's boring. Apparently, nobody has any work. I don't want to talk to the Mages Guild because they usually make me go to a dungeon.
The shop is better appointed than many. Its wares lie neatly on the shelves. Although not fit for a king, they are all skillfully crafted.
Oh, there's actually a lot here. Alright, I think at this point I am going to call it a night. We did get some more of the main story down, and it's obviously going to take me a while to figure out where the next step is going to be in terms of the Daedra. I might just teleport to Wayrest, but I don't know. I feel there's other things I can do in the meantime. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. We will see you next week with hopefully more than just one quest. See you next time.